Hi everyone, it's Tamara here and welcome to the Sweet November Stamps Love Notes YouTube hop. Sweet November Stamps are going to be giving one lucky person the chance to win the entire new release. To have your chance to win this amazing prize, all you need to do is visit each YouTube channel listed in the description box below. Subscribe to each channel, like each video and leave a comment. You have 4 days to watch all 8 videos and all the details regarding the hop are below. Today I'll be featuring the new Tiny Heart stamp set. I'll be doing some COPIC colouring and then making an interactive card. So let's get started. To make this card, I'll also be using the How You Been stamp set, the add-on die set, and the Conversation Hearts add-on set. I've just grabbed some scrap COPIC Express It cardstock from my stash, and I'm just going to stamp out the jar and also the lid from the How You Been set. And whenever I'm using COPIC markers, I like to stamp out in my Memento Tuxedo black ink, and always give it normally a couple of inks. That's why I love the Misti, because you can just re-stamp and you know you'll be stamping in the same spot. So we'll give that another press down, and I'll just press on the top where I actually missed a portion. Now I'll stamp out the lid. Just position that on the front, and we'll stamp that out. Then I'll just put on some music, and I'll just do a bit of quick colouring of the lid and the jar for you. I will be wanting to do a panel of grass at the base of my card, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of ink blending with my Distress Oxides in Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness. I'm doing the whole panel like a colour with the Twisted Citron, just blending out to the white, and then going over with the Mowed Lawn, and then we'll just finish off with a touch of the Rustic Wilderness at the bottom. Just got a piece of smooth white cardstock and my dome applicators, and just working in circular motions as I'm applying this ink to get a nice smooth blend. And it's just good to go between the colours just to ensure that blend is as smooth as possible. I'll also be doing a nice cloudy sky for my card, so I've grabbed out another piece of smooth white cardstock and my Distress Oxides in Kitsch, Flamingo and Spun Sugar. I'll be working with the Kitsch Flamingo at the top, so the darker colour at the top, then just working with the Distress Oxide Spun Sugar as we go further down. I'm just moving the stencil across as I do each layer, so just try and line up the cloud bumps as best you can to make sure that they line up as you move across the card. And I just keep rotating the stencil so you get a bit of variation with each level of cloud that I'm doing. I'm just putting a little bit of ink onto the actual stencil itself and then just working my way up onto the cardstock. That way you get some nice soft looking clouds. I've cut out my background cloud panel with a stitched rectangle die. And now I'm just wanting to do some extra die cutting to cut the channel for my interactive portion of my card, just leaving enough space to have some 3D foam behind that, and also where the grass will sit in front of this cutout. So just make sure you leave enough to get some foam tape in there. So I'm just going to line up where I want my grass panel to sit, because I'm wanting to also use that stitch rectangle die to cut that out so it matches perfectly in with my background frame. So I'm just going to move that to the side of my background panel and then just line up how much I need of the grass showing so that it covers that opening that I'm going to cut with my slider die. So I'm just going to grab some removable tape. This one's all tangled up, so I might grab another piece. And I'll pop that purple tape down on that side, and also just pop a little bit after I unfurl this, and pop another bit on this side. I just grab my Sizzix die cutting machine. I'm just going to show you how easily these cut out. So you've got your channel perfectly cut there, and then also how this will make the frame of the grass. so that it matches in with the background frame with the clouds. And once I get that out, I'll show you what that looks like. There you are. I also want to cut out 2 of these tab pull dies. I find that gluing 2 together just makes for a nice sturdy pull tab. So I'll just put a amount of glue on that, get that stuck down, and that's nice and sturdy now. Before I start assembling my card, I thought it's best to stamp out my sentiment onto my front of my card. So I'll be using the Straight from the Heart MFT sentiment set, and I'll be using the sentiment I Still Pick You. So I'm just lining that up in the Misti, just making sure that that's nice and square in that corner. And I'll be grabbing out my Versafine Onyx black ink, and I'll give that 2 stamps just to get a nice clean impression of that sentiment. So we'll make sure that's lined up in the corner and give that another stamp and set that aside to dry. I wanted to add some extra conversation hearts to be scattered around on the ground on the grass of my card front. So I've just die cut out a couple of the hearts from the How You Been Conversation Heart add-on. I'm just going to show you me adding a couple of the little sentiments that go on the front of these, but I won't show you them all because I'm sure you'll get the general idea with the first 2 I do. For my jar, I'm wanting it to look like the jar has been pushed over and that all the conversation hearts are getting scattered out of the jar and onto the ground. So I'm going to be doing some stamping and a bit of masking to get them to look like there's multiple hearts in that jar and that they're spilling out onto the ground. So I've just done my first heart and put my first layer of masking on. I'll add another one to this heart, and we'll just work up going into all the different spaces, trying to put the ones that are going to be on the front first, that are going to be kind of to the forefront, adding the masks and then adding the rest as we go along. So we'll just pop another one up the top, so it's just going slightly over the one in the middle. And again, I'm going to be coloring this in my COPICs, so I'm just using my Memento Tuxedo black ink. So we'll just add another one down the bottom, and then we'll, if my fingers let it go, so we'll get that on, and then I'll put one last mask on this, and then we'll pop one just above this one. So stamp that up. And now I just want to add the little sentiments that go on the conversation hearts. So I've kept all my masks on, so I'm just going to go kind of in backwards fashion, working from the ones that I've added that are going to be in the background to the ones in the foreground. So I'll just kind of quickly do this. I've sped it up, and we'll clean my images, my stamp, sorry, all the way through as I go. And just take off the next mask, add my little stamp, and we'll stamp out the bottom 2, so both the bottom ones can have the masks removed because they'll both be in the foreground. So we'll add one of the sentiments to this one, and then we'll quickly add the final one to the right hand one. They do kind of stick to my fingers a little bit, but we got there in the end. Close that down, and we'll give that one stamp, and that's ready to be colored. I'm wanting to add the word pull to the bottom of my tab so people know what to do when they get the card, but I've only got one that says pull here, so it's a little bit too big for this tab. So I'm just going to do some kind of selective stamping and put a little bit of tape over the here word and just stamp the word pull. So once you've stamped that, just pull off that piece of tape, and then you'll be able to stamp exactly the word that you're wanting. I'm just going to speed through some colouring now of the conversation hearts and the inside of the jar. So I'm just using some BV00 just to create a bit of shadow where obviously those hearts will overlap. Then go in with my darkest R85, blend out with the R83, and then finally blend out with the R81. So obviously the ones that are going to be more exposed will have more of that R81 on them. So we'll just blend that out to a smooth blend, and then we'll start on the jar. I'll be using the same colors that I did previously for the jar. So we've got BG11, blend out with the BG10, and then finally blending all of that out with the BG70. So we'll get that final layer on, and that is the inside of the jar ready to go. So I've got my background panel all ready to go, so I'm just wanting to add my tab. So as I mentioned before, we're wanting to have a bit of space below for the foam tape to go. So I'm just going to create a little bit of a sleeve for the tab to go through back and forth. So I've got a piece of scrap printer paper, and I'm just going to cut that down to size, just enough to fit on the end of where that cutout is. So we'll just glue that together so it just forms a nice little collar. And then we'll slide that off, and then we'll grab our tape to stick our tab down. And I'm just going to work out roughly where this needs to sit, allowing that space for all the foam tape, and we'll just tape that in place while we work on the rest of the elements around this tab. So I've got my sleeve that's now dry, so we just want to feed that through the tab and attach it to the back of our front panel, so that the tab has something to slide through and it keeps it in place. So just carefully slide that onto the end and press that down, and we'll just give that time to dry. Now I'm just going to keep that tape on that tab just while we work on the front of our card. So I'm just going to place my grass down and work out where I want to place my jar. So I kind of want it tucked a little bit behind the grass so that it looks like it's lying in the grass. And I want to kind of partially off to the side. So I'm just going to line that up and make sure it's in the correct spot. So obviously it's tipped over into the grass. So I'm just going to tape that down and just double check again before I stick the background conversation heart panel behind that jar. So I'm just going to turn my panel around just so I can glue this back into place. If we get enough glue on there to ensure a good stick, we'll just spin that around and we'll just slide that in underneath where we've got that taped. Just lining that up so that it looks perfect. So it just needs a little bit of a wiggle to make sure it's even on all sides, and we can remove that frame. Now with the frame, because it will have the mouse going in and out, we need to double up on the foam tape. So because obviously the frame is quite narrow, I will have to trim down each of the sections for that small frame. So you'll just see me cutting my foam tape pieces in half, just so that there is no foam showing. So we'll put that all around the edge, and then we'll put an extra layer on. We'll also need to double up the foam tape for the grass. So I'll put the bottom layer on and just rip that off, and I have run out of foam tape, so I'll grab a new roll. So we'll line that up and get that measured and in place, and we'll put that all around the sides. So we've got that there, and we'll just work out where we need it on the ends. At first I thought I can't put it on the end where the tab is, that it would get in the way, but the tab is actually underneath the panel, so it doesn't matter. So you will see me put another piece on the end where the tab is, and that gives it good support as well. And then I do pop a little bit of foam tape here, but I do remove that later on. You'll see it's been removed because obviously the jam jar actually gets in the way of that. So you will see that disappear coming up. We'll put our second layer on. So I've taken off all the release paper to the jam jar, and we'll just line that up over the conversation hearts background, making sure it's even on all sides, and give that a press. While we're working with the foam tape, we'll just put some on the background panel on the back as well. You only need one layer on here, so that still allows that tab to move back and forth. Now I have placed a small bit on the end of the tab, you'll see. That's to stop the tab moving any further in, so it just will stop there and not go any further. I've put some tape on both sides of the tab, and that way it's got a nice channel to run in and won't move about as people slide it back and forth. And I've just grabbed some bigger foam tape to put on the back, and that works perfectly. Now with my mouse, because he was on COPIC Express it was a little bit flimsy, so I've just put a bit of cardstock on the back of him, just glued a square on there, and that will just make sure that he's nice and firm as he gets attached. I'm now lining up my piece of acetate so that it will sit on the tab. So I've made sure that the tab is pushed in all the way, and I've just grabbed a pencil and just going to line up where I need to put some foam tape. So you will need to prop that up a little bit so it's sitting off the actual card. So that's why a piece of foam tape cut to size is perfect, and that will slide well in that channel. And then we'll just take off the release paper and get that bit of plastic acetate put down for our mouse to sit on. So we'll just line that up, pull it out a little bit to give yourself room, and just check that that slides back and forth. So before adding the rest of my elements, I thought it might be best just to add the background panel to my card. So I'm just pulling off all the release paper in the middle and then just doing it partially on the outside. That way it just kind of gives you a bit of room to maneuver if you do happen to place it not in the correct spot, because I'm wanting that lined up perfectly with a nice pink frame of the card around. So once you've got that in the correct spot, you can just pull off the rest of the release paper and it's perfectly placed. And you'll see me here panic for a minute thinking, what have I done wrong? It's sticking, but it's just because it was a little bit of residue on the end panel of foam tape that was stopping that from moving, but no further issues after that. Now with all the release paper off my grass, I'm just attaching that to the front of my card. And again, we'll just do a little bit of a test to make sure it's still moving perfectly. So I want to place the rest of my elements on the card front. So I'm just going to work out where I want them. So I want it to look like the lid's just been pushed off onto the grass, and that the other conversation hearts have kind of fallen out as the mouse has gone in and out to get his conversation heart. I've grabbed my reverse tweezers, so I'll just get a little bit of glue and just use them to line up all my elements on the front of the card. So we'll just add this heart and then we'll add the final heart, and then we can get ready to add our mouse. So it's now time to add our little mouse to the plastic tab. So I'm just going to work out roughly where I need to sit him on the tab to get him in and out of that jar. So I've grabbed some double-sided tape and I've just moved that back to the side and just going to add some tape to the top of that plastic tab. Pull off the release paper and then line him up on that ear to ensure that he's properly placed to go in and out of our jar. So we'll give that a little bit of a press and we'll just test it out. So he actually is catching at the top there. So I'm just going to actually just really gently pull him off that tab. And obviously he needs to be laying a bit flatter. But when I get him a bit lower, there's a bit of plastic sticking up. So I might just give the top of that tab a little trim so that there's no acetate showing above his head. And then make sure that he's lying flat into the grass, and just attach him on that ear, and we'll test it out and see if we've fixed it. And there he goes, in and out of his jar, stealing his conversation heart. And you can see just how excited I was with my double thumbs up. This is the final card for today. The tiny heart stamp set is so adorable, and this little guy is so cute, stealing his conversation heart from the jar. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I had so much fun making this card. Don't forget to like, leave a comment and subscribe for your chance to win the whole Love Notes release. It's such an awesome prize. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.